Hi, my name is Ted. I'm Hateful Darkblack on the forums. This is a tutorial for the game Malifaux, and I'm going to talk today about Jack Daw. Jack Daw is not a regularly released model yet, but he's out in metal from the first edition. He was a very different model in the first edition though, so if you're familiar with him from the first edition, that won't help at all. Some of his crew is already released, and some of it you have to proxy with something else, so most of my crew here are going to be proxies. So I'm going to talk about the crew and how it operates to give a basic idea of what to expect, either if you're playing it or if you're playing against it. The first model I'm going to talk about is Jack Daw himself. Jack Daw is the main member of the crew. He is pretty survivable because any attack against him gets a negative twist to attack and defense, and he has 13 wounds. But he's not perfect, and he is very possible to kill if you let him get overextended. And it's very easy to get him overextended because he has a lot of movement tricks. Jack Daw can attack both close range and medium range, and he can actually jump into base contact with whoever he attacks, friend or enemy, at up to 8 inches away as part of the attack. So that lets him jump around a lot. He also has a lot of abilities related to something called the Tormented condition, which is a condition that is specific to this crew. Tormented models are the models he can hire. He has tormented models he can hire from the Outcasts. He can hire a bunch of Resurrectionist models that are tormented, like Nurses and the Hanged. And he can also hire Papa Loco from the Guild, who is tormented because he's very crazy. I'm going to talk today, though, just about his core crew, the stuff that's most likely to come in his box when his box comes out. Jack Daw himself does a lot to manipulate the Tormented condition. He can move models with a Tormented condition with an upgrade. He can take control of models with a Tormented condition with an upgrade. He can become terrifying to models with Tormented with an upgrade. He can copy the abilities of Tormented models with an upgrade. He's got a lot of different things he can do to both move and control Tormented models. And the interesting thing about this is models with a Tormented characteristic, both friendly and enemy. So he has a lot of abilities to manipulate and copy friendly models, but he can actually do the same thing to enemy models if he can make them tormented. And how does he make them tormented? One of the main ways are his cursed upgrades. Now there are 3 cursed upgrades: Firing Squad Injustice, Drowning Injustice, and Guillotine Injustice. Guillotine Injustice. My apologies to all French revolutionaries out there for mispronouncing the word. Each of those is considered an upgrade, but it's not the kind of upgrade that you put on your own model to make your own model do better. It's the kind that you put on your enemy to make them die. Each of these is a upgrade that he can start with face down, and it does nothing. But both of his attacks, both his melee attack and his ranged attack, have triggers, and those triggers will have a built-in trigger to give one of these upgrades. There are 3 of them. One of them causes the enemy damage if they attack or if they get hit with an attack. One of them causes damage if they take any tactical action, including walking and charging, or if they fail a check. And the last one just kills them if it's a minion or a peon, unless they discard 2 cards. All of these are pretty harsh penalties, and they last for the rest of the game. And things that get rid of negative conditions don't help. You can take a 2 action to get rid of it. The other thing about these, though, is all of these curses give the Tormented condition as well, which means that Jack Daw can do all his manipulation tricks, he can move things around, he can push all Tormented models in on the target, etc. So all of these, once you get hit with one of these, it's a pretty hard existence for you, for an enemy model of Jack Daw's. So this is kind of his main aggressive potential, or these hard debuffs that also make you susceptible to control. His totem also has a pretty major debuff and interacts with the Tormented condition. I'm using a Puppet Wars Hollow Waif as a proxy for this. Lady Ligeia, the name actually comes from a Poe short story. She is, she seems fragile at first, but she has an amazing ability, which is that models within 3 inches of her cannot cheat or use Soulstones if they're enemy models. So near her, the enemy cannot cheat, and you still can. This is an incredible debuff, because it means that anyone trying to attack her in melee is probably going to miss, because you can't cheat up or use Soulstones to be more likely to hit. Furthermore, anything that she's up close to is going to have a hard time resisting any other effects. Lastly, she has an attack ability that will give Tormented until the end of the round to other models, which is a great way to set them up for other attacks. Jack Daw's henchman is Montresor. I'm using the Nightmare Hanged from first edition. I believe this is the Nightmare Hanged, I think that's Nathan. If so, hi Nathan. The Montresor deals with the tormented characteristic, but he also has one of the other kind of major effects of this crew, which is making toxic territory around him. Within 5 inches of him, he can reduce enemy willpower. He's got an upgrade that pulls anything within 5 inches up closer to him. He has both his 8-inch ranged attack and his 3-inch melee attack can also pull them in close. And models in base contact with him at the end of each turn have to make a save or they take 2 damage. He also has another very clever ability, which is sort of a surprising effect. He can set up, as an action, set up an aura that models that succeed on horror checks, models that succeed on terrifying checks, take 2 damage, and that's enemy models. So he can make it so enemy models have a choice of either taking 2 damage or getting paralyzed. So he's pretty brutal. He also is nimble, so even though he only has a 4 walk, he can get around very quickly, even more so because of all of Jack Daw's movement tricks. The problem with him, though, is everything that he wants to do is drawing enemies in very close to him, and making it very hard for them to leave, at which point they have really no alternative except to kill him. So you have to be careful when you're playing him, because if you let it happen, he can draw in a lot of enemies who will then just crush him because they have no other choice. He's a great tar pit model. He does a lot of damage near him. He makes it hard to be around him, but you do need to play him carefully. He's fast, he's interesting, he has a lot of debuffs, and he pulls enemies in. The last model in the crew I'm going to talk about are the Guilty. The Guilty also are not released. I used some Twisted Apparitions models as the proxy. The Guilty are 5-point minions that have a lot of utility, all related to the Tormented characteristic. They have a pretty good attack. They can, each one can give one model, friendly or enemy, the Tormented characteristic until it takes the action again. Even if the Guilty dies, the model will still be tormented. And this can be a way to make your own models tormented so you can maneuver them around more easily. But it's also quite as often used as a way to set up enemy models so that Jack Daw or the rest of the crew can take advantage of their tormented condition. The Guilty have a few defensive abilities. They have a high defense and hard to kill, but a lot of their defense actually comes from a variety of things that they can do to tormented models. They can give a condition to a model till the end of the turn that it can't attack tormented models. They have an advantage that other tormented models that shoot into melee with ranged attacks never flip for them because tormented models don't want to hit them. So they are... they're not impossible to kill. They have some special defensive abilities, some of which require setup. The main thing that they do, though, is do a lot of manipulation of Tormented. They are kind of the workhorses of making sure that the enemy gets tormented and stays tormented so that Jack Daw can mess with them and the rest of the crew can pound them and cause them misery. So that has been Jack Daw's crew. There's Jack Daw, who jumps around, gives terrible debuffs, has some scheme manipulation, and just makes everything move faster. There's his upgrades, which are terrible downgrades that kill you. There's Lady Ligeia, who has this aura of you can't cheat near her, so she's almost impossible to kill, and anything she's close to is hard to hurt. She also has a ranged attack, which is okay. There's Montresor, who is fast and a really good tar pit model, but can be somewhat fragile. And then there are the Guilty, who move around, zip towards any tormented model, and can make models tormented. They are fast objective grabbers, but they have a lot of specialties specifically towards tormented. They can give it, and they like manipulating it. That's the Jack Daw crew. I hope this has been helpful and interesting. Again, this is for the game Malifaux. My name is Ted, or Hateful Darkblack, and I hope you enjoy this tutorial about Jack Daw. Thanks.